Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Weissoon. If you enjoy real-world hunting and fishing talk, you're really going to enjoy listening to my good friend, Luke Clayton, and his guest for the next hour.
This is David Fox, and welcome to Outdoors with Luke Clayton and Friends. Luke has been a recognized outdoors writer for the past 3 decades and writes for a host of outdoor publications. Luke pens a weekly newspaper outdoors column that appears in over 40 Texas newspapers. Luke is on the pro staff of Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything air gun related. Smokin Tex electric smokers and AGM Global Vision, maker of an awesome line of thermal hunting scopes and spotters. Feel free to contact Luke through his website, catfishradio.org. Now let's join Luke and his guests for this week's show.
Well, thank you guys for that nice introduction. And Larry, thank you for being at our outdoor rendezvous last weekend. We had a ball up there at Greenville at our annual spring rendezvous. Had a great time. Thanks for being there, buddy.
Oh, my gosh, Luke, indeed, it was absolutely fantastic. The food that you had I'm telling you, was out of this world. And I have to admit, this year I kind of enjoyed sharing a little bit of that cobbler with everybody.
I tried to have enough this year, and I think we did.
You did. I think I walked away from there kind of waddling because of everything I ate. And of course, you're right. It was just an absolutely fantastic event with so many great people and friends that we've known for years, and even had the opportunity to meet a whole lot of new friends.
Yeah.
So that's going to kind of really endear me even that little bit more up to your part of the world up there in the northeast kind of quarter of the state. But right. Absolutely great event, and really want to tell everybody thank you there at the church for all the work that they did to make it successful, and two, to thank everybody that came out. And if you weren't there this year, start planning for being there this coming year.
That's right. For about the first Saturday in March, the good Lord willing, we'll all be doing it again. This was the 6th one, and well, we've got a good segment lined up, but I think first you might want to tell everybody the good folks that make it possible for you to be here on Catfish Radio, on Campfire Talk with Larry Weissoon for 18 years, Larry.
Look, I really do. Of course, DSC, Conservation Education and Advocacy, has been very much involved with us for all those years, and really appreciate those folks. Best organization in the world, and they can learn more about it by going to biggame.org. And then, of course, Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable, has been with us as well for a long time. And then over the last several years, we've added several different groups, such as Taurus, which makes the handguns that I hunt with, and the Mossberg that makes the rifles and shotguns that we shoot. And of course, those are made here in Texas, among other things. And then we got 2 other great companies that we work with as well that allow us to do what we do, and that's Stealth Vision from over in Crockett, Texas. Unbelievable scopes and binoculars and spotting scopes and a whole lot of other things as well. And then, of course, there's also VINEYARDMAX down at Nacogdoches, or up in Nacogdoches, that makes all the great products that they do, the baits, the feeders, and of course they also sell my Larry Weissoon whitetail knives as well too. So really appreciate all those great sponsors that we have that allow us to spend time with folks every Saturday, or throughout I guess now, because of the internet, with the podcast, not just every day, and all those other great times that we can get together and meet with these folks.
Exactly, Larry. Interesting thing we do, of course, we do our radio show and our TV show, A Sportsman's Life, weekly. So it gives us a chance to to keep people tuned into what's going on. I want to tell you about something that to me I found very interesting. I've got a lifelong friend, Mike Killam, that lives up in Red River County. Well, Mike, we were raised out in the country. His folks bought the Old Country Store from my parents back probably in, I don't know, maybe early 50s, something like that. I was just a little child at the time. But anyway, Mike and I were raised next door. So Mike's dad had a big tract of land down near about 10 miles from the Red River. And that's where Mike lives. So he lives the life of he's out there with wild turkey and deer and coyotes. That's what I want to ask you about, Larry. So
yes, sir.
I was talking to Mike yesterday, and he's got a big German Shepherd, a big one, almost like I'd call a German police. It's got like dark looking dogs, one
right.
you don't
like
want to mess with, right?
No, a small horse kind of thing.
You wouldn't want to be walking up on him anyway. So he's a good dog, but he bred a female coyote, and Mike witnessed the whole thing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, Mike saw the breeding take place. This coyote is denned up. It's a female coyote, denned up not too far in a big, heavy brush pile. He's got there's a den there, and he knows, it's pretty easy to see the entrance, Mike told
right.
me. And he sees the female coming out of there. So February is breeding season, peak breeding season for coyotes. We know that.
Yes, sir.
And this was 2 weeks ago. And I just talked to Mike yesterday. He said, yeah, my male German Shepherd bred this coyote. He saw it happen. So he in April, I guess, that's when the pups, I kind of did a little research, that's when the pups will be born. Mike was saying, he said, I don't know. He said, I've seen, they're called Coydogs, and they can breed male to female, both ways with dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Mike said, I'd love to try to domesticate one of these. I'm thinking, yeah, but how are you going to get that rascal out of that den when it's, But I don't know where this is going to go. But I have seen coy dogs, and of course the ones I've seen were as wild as any coyote in the world. They were wild, but I just wonder. I would imagine the genetics crossing up like that. They some may be able to be domesticated, more dog traits than the coyote, and some may not. That's what I told Mike. He was asking me. I said, well, if you had one as a pup and took, raised it as you would a dog, a puppy, maybe, but there's no guarantees how it would turn out. Larry, what's your thoughts on that?
I think you're exactly right. I want to go back to white-tailed deer and mule deer crosses, and what happens is generally that offspring has a tendency to look and act a whole lot more like the mother does. Okay. Now, coyotes are pretty darn wary in a lot of different ways, but if that was something that I was going to try to do, I would try to get that pup out of there before it opens his eyes. So when it opens his eyes, the first thing it sees is a human, so that it kind of imprints upon that human. And if he does it that way, I think the chances of that offspring or the cross between those two being a whole lot easier to deal with in terms of raising it and in terms of wariness and all those other kind of things. So it would be interesting to see what happens now. That those F1s coming out of that big male German Shepherd, those are going to probably, if those that survive out in the wild, are going to be definite killers, because they're going to be bigger than a regular coyote, maybe not quite as big as that German Shepherd, but it could be, and it could even be bigger. So to me, that's one of the things we should be concerned about on a lot of different places where people would turn their dogs, they were just far enough out of town, and people, rather than take them to the pound or giving them to somebody else, they would unfortunately just take them out in the country and turn them loose. Mm-hmm. And periodically we would see crosses, and generally those crosses were extremely efficient and in terms of predation. So unfortunately we had to concentrate very much to try to get onto those, yes, so that they didn't kill calves and they didn't, and didn't really decimate the local deer herd and some of the other things. So that's something to be concerned about when it comes to those crosses such as that.
You'll have a chance. You're going to be able to meet Mike Kellum pretty soon. Okay. Here up this way when you're up in this part of the world, and I want you to talk to him. I did mention this to Mike. I said, Mike also told me, he said, I've seen some wolves around here, and I said, Mike, not to contradict you, but you might have seen the German Shepherd looking big coyotes, that they have the wild look, the coy dogs, in other words. He said I shot at one, and he said it was a wolf, Luke. Well, I'm not contradicting, but chances are very good that it could have been a big old coy dog, because they can take on. Yeah.
It really could, but also all that country that we're talking about, all the way down to the coast and the areas where I grew up, that was endemic red wolf country, which were a little bit bigger than coyotes, kind of thing. And there's still some of those kind of show up every once in a while. And then too, as the coyote moved in, they started crossing with those, and it's one of those genetic things to where you get the right cross, you could have all of a sudden have a much more wolf-looking critter than what you would a coyote. On my place, which is in Colorado County, out about 90 miles. Well, it used to be 90 miles west of Houston. Now it's probably about 30 miles.
Yeah.
We have shot coyotes that weighed, one of my uncles shot one that weighed 54 pounds years ago. And then about 3 years ago, I shot one that weighed 52 pounds. And, the average coyote is not that big. So that apparently was kind of a throwback to that red wolf kind of thing, or the interjection of some domestic dog, as well, too, could have been involved in that. We didn't try to do any DNA stuff on him, but, so that's also a possibility. But it's interesting that these crosses that you see such as that, because generally they are pretty darn adaptable, to different things, and they can be very, very efficient predators, particularly when you get more than one or two together.
Exactly. And where I live, which is within less than 30 miles from Dallas, and you've been out in my area a lot, Larry, in years past too, but here it's common for people to drop off for them to kick dogs out. It's a shame that they do, but they do.
So sad.
It is. It's not good. But I've hunted a lot. You get off the roads. There's some areas that are quite wild right close to me here.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the woods, and I've seen packs of 2 or 3 dogs. They weren't coy dogs. They were dogs. And one of them scared the daylights out of me a few years ago. I was walking, actually, I'd heard a sow and some pigs back in some heavy cover, and I was downwind trying to sneak in there. Well, it was a big dog. I don't know. He probably weighed 75 or 100 pounds, big old dog, long hair, and I was walking up, and that dog, I came upon the dog before I did the hogs, and that rascal bristled up, and it was probably about 40 yards from me when I walked up on it, but it didn't run. I mean, It was kind of it looked very aggressive, and to be quite frank with you, I forgot about the hogs. I was thinking about phasing that one out, because I'd seen him on trail cameras,
Right,
but he
exactly.
he took off. I didn't get a chance to shoot him, but I was going to. He was definitely a wild dog, so they can do a lot of damage. They can, and then when they're bred in with the coyotes, it'll be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure Mike's going to grab one of those pups, and I'm pretty sure he knows what to do with the rest. I mean, I don't think he's going to let those. He's all about turkey and deer up there, so he's quite a wildlife guy, and I don't think he's going to let those others do any damage up in that part of the country. Be interesting though to track it and see what goes on with that. He might have the best guard dog in the world out of it.
Or hunting dog. I mean, you talk about a trailing dog. To me, any operation that I love dealing with hunters and hunting groups who have a blood trailing dog. To trail, wounded animals kind of thing. And that might be, with the nose that coyote has, and then the size of that German Shepherd, the combination of those two, if he could train that to be a blood trailing dog, oh my gosh, I think it'd be out of this world good.
Yeah, I've got a nephew, Connor Crockett, Boone and Crockett. He's got a blood trailing. It doesn't have to be blood. This dog can.
Exactly.
He can send out those wounded deer. But, Mike Killam and his blood-trailing coy dog. I can see it right now. Larry, we're out of time. I wish we had about 4 hours to keep enjoying just talking about things. That's kind of what makes our show different, if you will. we're not structured. We talk about whatever is going on at the time, but I enjoy it, and I've been around 18 years every week, so I think some other folks must.
I think they do. If they enjoy what we do, even a tenth or 1% as much as what we do, then they're liking it.
That's right. Well, Larry, thank you for being with us, and I'll introduce you to Mr. Mike Killam, and y'all can talk Coydogs real soon. How about that?
I am looking forward to that, and looking forward to being right back here again next week.
Folks, I want to introduce you to VINEYARDMAX. Now, this is an awesome deer attractant, a food attractant that's made with hammer-milled grape skin, dried hammer-milled grape skins. It has a mixture of rice bran and also corn chops. Very effective. Deer can smell the scent of grapes from a long way, and it brings them in. I've used it in West Texas out with Larry Weissoon, and we were out there where deer are not even exposed to grapes, and they came right in. Also, VINEYARDMAX has a very good line of game and fish feeders. Check them out online, vineyardmax.net. Well, friends, Mr. Larry Weissoon is going to tell you about the finest hunting optics that we have ever found.
Look, these are called Stealth Vision. They come from Crockett, Texas. Dr. John McCall developed them. They're 34 millimeter tubes as opposed to the narrower tubes, so more light transmission. They have a little green light that comes on. That scope is leveled because that's when you want to pull the trigger. They have an optional lighted reticle as well too, and a whole lot of other products. And folks can learn more about them by going to stealthvision.com.
Friends, I want to tell you about an awesome camping destination, Wind Point Park on Lake Tawakoni. It's over on the far east side, kind of the northeast side of the lake. It's a pristine park. You can go there and view, I think they estimated a couple of hundred deer on that couple of hundred acres there. Cabins, beautiful RV park, fishing piers, docks. It's got everything you'd want in an outdoor destination. Check them out online at windpointparktx.com. Folks, this segment is made possible by Smokin Tex electric smokers that I've been using a long, long time, CatfishPro catfishing baits and catfish supplies, Ultrimatic Feeders, and AGM Global Vision, maker of the spotters and thermal scopes that I hunt with. Well, friends, if you've been listening to this show for very many years, you know I am a white bass nut, bona fide white bass nut. I love to catch them throughout the year, but I absolutely love to fish the spawn. Now, we've got a special guest coming up here in this segment, Mr. Dwayne Fitzgerald. Now, Dwayne owns a camp right on the Trinity River near Livingston, down off Lake Livingston there. And we're going to talk about catching them, the white bass there, right there off the bank at his resort. His resort is called River Rat Resort. Sound like it's named appropriately for old Luke here anyway, but Dwayne, thanks for being with us, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mr. Luke.
Yes, sir. The park is it's unique. I mean, it's right there on the Trinity River, and there's something like, I don't know, quarter of a mile or so of river access where people, when those sand bass are running, you know, anybody that's fished for spawning sand bass knows that they can be here or there or yonder. But you can walk that bank, and I'm pretty sure you could put together a mess of them all during the spawn anyway, couldn't you?
Yes, sir. They're once they get in that river, you know, we've got plenty of room to roam around there and find out where they're at.
Yeah.
And two, we've got a boat ramp right there on the place, and we're a very short boat trip from several creeks and oxbows and so forth to get off to the side there, and you'll definitely find them this time of year.
Yes, sir. Well, one thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands all that is, there's a couple of cabins you got there, and of course I like to fish off the bank and boat too. It doesn't matter. But the cool thing about that, your boat ramp is in an isolated pocket. You know, so the water, I mean, you're never going to be launching your boat in waves 3 feet high the way it, you know, it's an isolated area there where the ramp is. isn't it?
Yes, sir. We did that intentionally for that reason. I mean, obviously being on the river, and you get in different rains and so forth and different, elevation stages, the current can pick up and so forth. But we cut a canal back in there to where, it's always calm and easy to launch. It's a good wide concrete ramp there. So yes, real easy to get in and out right there.
And anybody that's ever launched a boat with a ramp right on the river when there's much current, it is a challenge. You better be a pretty good boatsman to do that. You better have that motor. Everything's got to work just right. And quite honestly, in a strong current, when you're putting that boat in 90 degrees to the bank like that, it can be somewhat tricky. So, you were thinking ahead, Dwayne, when you did that,
Well, I've had myself in several predicaments there. So
you've probably been on what I just described, right?
Exactly. I've jumped the trailer a few times myself.
That bow hit it, and you think you're going to be on the rollers, and all of a sudden the transom is downstream.
It make you appreciate having a fishing buddy.
That's right. Yes, sir. So let's talk about the resort. Now, if you wanna go down, say some hardy young fellas or whatever, want to pitch them a tent and build them there's fire rings right there at the tent sites. You could do that if you wanted to, and there's a bunch of nice RV hookups. Tell us about those. I mean, people could bring their RV, couldn't they?
Absolutely. We've got 37 full hookup RV sites. Each site is, they've got water, sewer, electric, all the utilities and all of that. There's 30 amp and 50 amp at each site. And there's high-speed Wi-Fi, internet throughout the park. We've got 2 site-built cabins. They're brand new cabins, and they're fully furnished, full-size kitchens and all of that good stuff. The outdoor amenities there, we've got fire pits, park-style grills, picnic tables at each of the cabins. And the tent sites down there, we intentionally left the majority of the whole riverbank area down there undeveloped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's primitive camping down there on those tent sites. And we did that intentionally so that people could come out, have room to, enjoy nature and not be right on top of where people's living and things like that. So that whole river bottom area is left and, clean and all of that good stuff, but undeveloped intentionally.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead. I'm enjoying.
Also, I was going to add too. There was an old oxbow pond that came up into place, and we fixed it up to where it's a 2-acre pond. We've got a fishing pier out in it, and the cabin's kind of set just up from that pond. So there's plenty of good fishing right there too if you didn't want to mess with the river.
Is that pond? Is it away from the river? I guess it's a standalone pond, or
it is. It is a standalone, but it is like a just a peninsula away.
Yes,
so you could literally fish in the pond and then turn around and walk just a few steps and go throw into the river if you wanted to.
So we're talking about the white bass, and because I'd say through March and April. A lot of things dictate the spawn on the white bass. Current is one thing, and really clarity of water too is important. The fish are going to be doing their thing, but the clarity of water to find them. Sometimes you can just find a mud line, and fish the clear side, and catch the daylights out of the spawning white bass. But the name of our show is Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends. So. It's not all. It's we talked. Larry Weissoon, Mr. Whitetail, he was on the segment before you and I there. I don't know if you were able to hear him, but Larry's been with me for 17 years. He's a famous dude. So we talk about hunting and everything else, but the name is Catfish Radio, and I absolutely love to catch catfish. And Livingston, it's long been known as a catfish hotspot, hasn't it?
Yes, sir. And we are in a prime location for that. So we have a lot of cat fishermen come up. Even have some commercial fishermen that fish out of our place every day.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Matter of fact, I caught one of them coming out just yesterday, and I think he just went out and ran one line and had 28 in the boat. So their catfish are doing real good right now.
Lot of blue catfish in Livingston, isn't it? You know?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That and op. They got good op fishing too.
You bet. That's something that I will. I'll be calling your office at some point this spring and summer, and I'll be down there. You could literally, bait up for those blues. I fish for blues a lot, and Tawakoni usually you go up to Texoma some, and fish up there for blues. But Livingston, it's been a while since I fished down there, but I've caught a bunch of them in the years past. So you could just, throughout the summer or throughout the year, you could fish off the bank, rig up like we call it a Santee rig for blues, where you got a little float your bait up off the bottom. You could you can fish right there. I bet you can catch pretty good off the bank.
Oh yeah, we have lots of folks that do plenty well right there off the bank. There's been some really nice fish caught right there in front of the place.
Yes, sir. Well, the park is really your park there. It's the old Bell's Camp area, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The original property is the Bell's Camp. We just developed it, and we put. Some people get confused if you know where the old Bell's Camp Marina Road goes in. We put a new entrance in just north of it, and you can't miss it. It's all lit up, River Rat Resort signs and all of that good stuff. But it is the same old Bell's Camp Marina.
For years ago, I used to bow fish down there with a buddy, Mark Billette, and his folks and his friends down there a lot. We used to go, coming out of Trinity, go across the bridge, and I think there's a new bridge there now, I believe, but I think But go across the old bridge, and there's a ramp right on the left there. Used to be, we'd put in there, and then we'd go back up in there bow fishing and fishing with rod and reels too. But your place, you'd go right on up the hill there, up a little farther toward.
So we're back towards Trinity. So whenever you cross, like if you're coming out of Riverside, whenever you cross the bridge headed north on 19, we'll be on the left-hand side, about a mile past the bridge.
And that's where the river kind of makes a bend in there. It comes close.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
To your camp. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I've been all through that. It's been many years ago, but I've been all up in there by boat. Used to fish there quite a bit. Well, that's awesome, man. So a good tip on the, I can throw a tip in and you might be able to add something to it, but you get little baits like road runners, a little road runner or beetle spin, and I have had more luck fishing at Trinity with like a black and yellow body on those baits, and just slow presentation. Work them real.
Yes,
is that kind of what?
So we use those quite a bit, but I tell you what, we've had some really good luck off of the 1/8 ounce Johnson Sprite spoons.
Just a little spoon, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've done really well off of those, whether it be trolling, and sometimes if we're trolling, we usually add a leader onto it with more swivels.
Yeah, so it won't twist up.
Your rig up. Right.
Oh, that's interesting there. Yeah.
Yep, a lot of things that we do, especially whenever you're having trouble finding them.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll get out there and troll slow, just big motor running, but in gear and troll until you find them, and then once you find them, just stop and cast and retrieve with it, and man, you can wear them out. Catch more than you want to clean in a short period. And
a lot of people are mistaken on. Some people say, "Oh well, those." Sand bass, we call them sand bass a lot. White bass, they've got that bloodline. When you fillet those things, if you run that fillet knife just a little bit up from the skin, most of that bloodline stays right on the
yes,
fillet.
Sir. Yes, sir.
But
I tell you, another good tip too is just rinsing and soaking, getting that blood out there until you got good clean water.
Yes, sir.
And man, you'd be surprised at how big of a difference it makes in the taste of those fish.
You bet. Put them in some water and running water. Yeah, it'd be a. This is some serious some serious fishing tips. But that water will foam up on you. And you can see some of the oil coming out and just flush the heck out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, let's get people where they want folks. I don't need to tell you if you listen to a show much, or a lot of hardcore outdoorsmen do listen all over. But a good place on the Trinity River right now down at Livingston is, River Rat Resort, and you can go online to riverratresort.com and book there. If Dwayne, if they want to call the office, could you leave a number for people to, if they can find everything at riverratresort.com, but they might want to call,
Yeah, no, they're welcome to call, but I'll be totally honest with you, I can't remember the number right off the top of my head. But all of it is on the website. But just look it up and give us a call, and we'll be glad to accommodate whatever you need.
Well, look for old Luke to be down there at some point in the not too far distant future, Dwayne.
Hey, we'll do some fishing, man. Love to have you.
Oh yeah, we do. Many of our listeners know Larry Weissoon and I, and another gentleman, Jeff Rice. We do a weekly TV show every week. We call it Real World Outdoors. Sometimes you catch fish, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get the big buck, and sometimes we show it like it happens. And if you get a chance, I'd like you to look at it. It's on YouTube, but it's on Carbon TV. That's where a lot of people watch it. It's called A Sportsman's Life. So I can get those two guys rounded up, Larry, and come down there. And they're both big fishermen. Get down there and spend the night and catch some fish sometime with you, buddy.
Man, y'all come see me, man. I'd love to have y'all.
Well, thanks a lot, Dwayne. And folks, that's where that's what you need to know. riverratresort.com.
Folks, let's talk a little outdoor cooking. Let me tell you about an electric smoker that I've been using for 15 years, I guess. Smokin Tex electric smokers. If you're tired of staying up all night keeping that wood fire burning when you're barbecuing, give Smokin Tex a try. They're made to last a lifetime. You can check them out at smokintex.com. That's SMOKINTEX.com. For seasonings, anything to do with outdoor cooking, all kind of jerky seasonings, sausage seasonings, Butcher Packer Supply. That's butcherpackersupply.com. I think the website is butcher-packer.com.
I want to tell you about a one-stop shop for everything related to game feeders and fish feeders, Ultrimatic Feeders. I've been using components and feeders from Ultrimatic Feeders for 20-something years, I guess. They have the remote, which you can remotely activate your feeder with, the timer, which is the most simple timer that I've ever found on a game feeder, and then the eliminator. Check these out. They are worked on centrifugal force, and they seal off the corn supply so coons and squirrels can't get to the corn. Check them out. Ultrimatic Feeders, you could go online to ultrimaticfeeders.com. Friends, this segment is made possible by Platinum Cadillac and Chevrolet in Terrell, Texas. Stop by and visit with my buddy, Mr. Justin Rudd, and his team of experts, and let them put you in a new Chevy pickup or a Cadillac or whatever you might be in the market for. Also, the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma. Check them out at ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. Also made possible by Pyramyd Air, your one-stop shop for everything airgun related. Well, friends, as we spoke earlier in the previous segment, the white bass run is coming to a creek or a river near you. It's there now, to be honest with you. Talked about the Trinity down near Lake Livingston. Well, let's shift up to northeast Texas, up to the Lake Fork area. Lake Fork has a large contingency of white bass. I can remember when the black largemouth bass fishermen said, "Oh no, we'll never get sand bass in here." Well, they've been in there for a long time. Mr. Jeff Rice, my good buddy, has got some property adjacent a feeder creek up there, and we're going to talk about the way we do the white bass run. Jeff, thank you for being with us, sir.
I am always glad to join you, my friend.
Yep, always glad to have you, too. Only more fun is when we're down there on the creek snagging those big spawning female sand bass. But, my newspaper column a week ago was about the white bass fishing and the run, and I talked a good bit about the way we do it. I remember years back when you were telling me about a gentleman that was there prior to you, maybe, that was telling you about catching sand bass, white bass in that creek. And then I said, I bet we can really have some fun with this. And that's all it took. The first time the creek and the bank was really grown up, it was thick, but there was places where we could get through to the water. And we hammered a bunch of sand bass there, white bass, that first year. And then you took it from there, and we added some amenities as far as how we do it. But we learned that during the run that can be really, really good, and it is. But you cleaned a lot of that bank up. Of course, that was your property, so you could do that, On a public stream, it's a different story, but it made it to where it is an ideal spot to catch the white bass, isn't it,
Oh, definitely. Yes. The property I bought from my neighbor, an elderly gentleman, he as a boy had built a dock off that creek. And when I bought the property from him, he told me about an old dock that was down there. And so we went down there, and sure enough, if you remember, you and I went down there, and it was like, holy cow, look at this. And
yeah.
So I tore all that brush out. I rebuilt that dock, and then you and I started poking down that creek and catching sand bass like there was no tomorrow. I'll never forget that as long as I live. The day you and I had, did our first fish down there, and we just absolutely hammered the fish. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is a gold mine.
It was. Of course, it's an awesome, I don't know a better place to hunt hogs. All up in that country, really, but along that wetland, the upper end of the lake is just hog central. But then to couple that with the awesome fishing, it made it twice as neat as far as I'm concerned. So let's tell them how we've morphed this pretty rude fishing trip, or crude. We were just fighting our way up to the water and catching the daylights out of them back in the day. But now you've got a clean access to much of that shoreline adjacent to creek. And going down there, walking down the creek, something that I've learned through the years, and it's a fact, is around a bend in any stream, whether it's a creek or a river, there's usually a washout. There's usually eddy water on the upstream side. That's calmer water, where it meets the flow of the creek or the river stream. But that eddy water, and then there's also around the bend, there's usually a washout, a deeper hole, if you will, on most any stream. And that's what, we catch fish all up and down, Jeff, but those places that around those bends has proven to be probably the best, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I call them a pocket. I
Yeah.
mean, they kind of group up in that little area, and it's tend to be a little bit deeper spot where those bends in the creek are. And sometimes you'll find a blowdown or some log in the water or something, and they just get right in there, and you can hit those little honey holes or those pockets, and I mean literally, you'll catch just oodles of fish out of one spot, and you go back up, hit a few more spots, come back, hit that spot again, and they have new fish that have moved in, and you can really load up on a bunch of fish. It's just, it's incredible how they move up through there and take over all those spots, and they continue to come up and move through there. And I tell you what, we've had more fun, you and I, doing that stuff. And to the folks listening out there, if you've never creek fished for sand bass, and one other thing, don't forget, there's a lot of crappies up in there too. You'll catch crappies along with those sand bass, and I'm telling you what, it's just, it's a delight. It truly is.
It is, Jeff. And it seems that the white bass, the males, the way it works in the spawn, the males move up in these streams first, and they're staged, and then the females come up, deposit their eggs, and they swish their tails around and fertilize the eggs and all that. That's the way it works. But it's a drawn-out thing, and there's a few things that are necessary for good fishing. One of them is current. Now, that's not to say once those creeks get packed with sand bass and there's no runoff, that they don't magically disappear overnight. They're still back in those holes. But if you've got just a little current, And clarity of water and warmth of the ambient air temperature. That's two other things that are important. I learned that a long time ago fishing with David Cox, Palmetto Guide Service down at Lake Livingston. He is known for white bass fishing. But he says if the mainstream is real murky, not to say you can't catch some, but if you can find a tributary, a feeder creek feeding that creek with clear water, he said, and I've done it with him, they will be packed in there like cordwood. I mean, just so many of them. So that's a few of the fine points, but the bottom line is right now in early March, Jeff, it's prime time. The crappie, the awesome crappie fishing, and I've seen this in not only that your area, but other places as well. I've had people tell me for about 3 days, it's unreal. And the crappie bite, red hot bite, doesn't seem to last as long as the white bass. Have you noticed that, Jeff?
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. You typically will get sand bass in there, and you may have a good solid couple weeks of really good sand bass fishing, but you're right. You tend to hit the crappies, and it's a few days, and then they kind of, it seems like they're gone. But yeah, right now it's just absolutely the perfect time. And all of those tips you just said, are those points about moving water, clarity of water, and ambient air temperature, that is the absolute key to everything. So we just went through, I guess, what you and I would call a little bit of a winter freeze.
Yep.
And just prior to that winter freeze, I was catching some sand bass. I caught a few, and then the next day it dropped to at or below freezing temperatures. So I'm sure those fish are still in there, but they're just I'm sure the barometric pressure probably changed enough to where they're not going to bite. But now that it's warmed back up again, I mean, it turns on like a light switch.
Game on, isn't it? It's going to be.
Yes, sir.
It is game on right now. Early March, and for the next week or two is whether you're fishing the Llano River, the San Saba down in the hill country, the Frio out in South Texas, the Campwood, Lakey area, wherever you're at, the Trinity, it's time. You know, what I really enjoy, we get to do a lot of different types of fishing, both of us do, but this is something that is really special to me. We've developed a system, folks. The little camp Jeff described where the dock is, it's on the downstream side of his property. Well, he's got the little cooking rack. We do it right, Jeff. That's our first stop early in the morning, about daylight or whatever, and we drop off some good dry woods, the skillets, the oil, the meal, the potatoes, the pork and beans, the light bread, onions. We've got it all set up right there. The fresh water to put the finishing touch on the fillets. It's okay to use creek water for the first part, but we like to use a gallon of fresh water to clean those fillets prior to cooking. But we've got all that set up, Jeff, and then we head upstream and fish our way down, don't we?
Well, we sure do. And, it's ironic, the fact that, we have all of this beautiful creek running in front of us, and we've got this little area set up for cooking. So you're pulling fish out of the water, bringing them over to a cleaning table. You're cleaning that fish, and you've already got grease hot, ready to go. And I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. And we sit down there and just have an absolutely wonderful meal, and we just continue at it, catching fish, and it's just so much fun. You can't. I mean, you even just talking about it, you have to experience it. It's just exciting. It's just a lot of fun.
It's something about always, whether I'm hunting hogs or I've been down there before and actually shot a hog early, not early, but daylight, and you were out bass fishing. I remember one time down there, and something about the game or the fish right out of the woods or the water. I put that thing, I quartered it up. It was a small hog, and had it by noon. We were eating some really, really good barbecue.
I'll never forget that.
I won't either. It was just so much fun. Well, Jeff, I thought it'd be fun to carry on a little bit farther with the white bass run talk. But friends, that's the kind of fun you can have. Granted, you may not have access to, a half a mile of private waters, but you don't have to have. If you'll do a little research and a little checking, There's a lot of public access above any reservoir, and most all reservoirs in Texas. So check it out. The best baits, Jeff, we have found for us. You could catch them on a rattle trap, but you'd spend all your time hung up or trying to get the two treble hooks out of the fish's mouth. But little downsized spinners like Roadrunners and beetle spins, black and yellow is usually a good color. That's all you really need, and some light tackle, right?
That's correct. I think one of the things, and I know I use a beetle spin a lot, and a Roadrunner, they have like a little blade on a little silvery blade that spins, kind of like you would find on a spinnerbait or something, but in a smaller size. But that flashed off of that little spinner. I think triggers a lot of bites. So yeah, the beetle spins or the Roadrunners, that's exactly what you want to use. And you'd be surprised. Those beetle spins tend to be pretty good size. You look at them, there's smaller ones, but the bigger size one, you look at it and go, that's pretty big bait. You'd be surprised. Those fish will hit that thing like there's no tomorrow.
They'll nail it. Jeff, thanks a lot. I look forward to us. Pretty soon you and I and a few good friends, we're going to do just what we talked about. So it's coming up. Thank you for being with us.
Sounds good. I'll meet you at the creek.
For about the past decade, I've been hunting editor for Airgun Hobbyist magazine. I think the only magazine devoted strictly to airgun shooting and hunting in the country. Well, in that length of time, I've learned quite a bit about big bore air guns and smaller calibers too. A spot to go to that if you're interested in air guns, you need to know about Pyramyd Air. The website is PYRAMYD, PyramydAir.com. They have anything and everything you need, from the guns themselves, the big bores or the smaller calibers, to the accessories. Just remember PyramydAir.com, and there's a number when you get on the website if you need to call and talk to somebody. Give them a buzz, and they can fill you in on little details that you might need to know about shooting or hunting with big bore air guns. While you're on the website there, I'd like you to check out the big bore air gun that I've done a great deal of hunting with. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw, 50 caliber, pressures up to 3,000 psi, and it looks like a conventional rifle. Wooden stock. I think you'll like the appearance, and I know you'll like the performance. It shoots not only bullets, but also air bolts as well, tipped with a broadhead. Check it out. It's the Seneca Dragon Claw.
The snowflakes fall as winter comes, and time just seems to fly.
Friends, this segment is brought to us by CVA Muzzleloaders. In my opinion, the very best muzzleloaders in the world, the ones that I shoot. You can check them out online, CVA.com. AGM Global Vision, maker of the Rattler and the Adder that I use, you can check them out online too, agmglobalvision.com. Kuby's Wild Game Processing and Kuby's Restaurant in Dallas, and VINEYARDMAX, maker of some awesome deer attractant and some very fine game feeders and fish feeders, located down in Nacogdoches, Texas. Check them out at vineyardmax.net. Well, folks, it's your old buddy Luke Clayton, and I sure hope you've enjoyed our show thus far. I'm going to wrap things up with you and cover a few bases here in our last segment, but thanks to all the folks that are with me each week. We have a variety of guests, and we talk about everything from catching flathead catfish on live bait to hunting turkeys and everything just about in between. But thanks to everybody, and I want to take time to thank all of our radio stations. Now, these stations could run any outdoor show they like, but for many years, many years, some of them, some of the early ones that started running Catfish Radio, we're still on every week, and thank goodness we've got a lot of new great ones, especially up in the Texas Panhandle. Thank all you folks up there for listening. I'm thrilled to be able to share the outdoors with you. But, turkey season's about to kick off here in a few weeks. And I know all you old turkey hunters like me are chalking up those box calls and getting ready. There is nothing in the outdoors. Maybe a bull elk coming into a call might equal the excitement of hearing an old gobbler thunder off back in the distance. Textbook turkey hunting which is seldom ever happens in the woods for me. But textbook turkey hunting goes something like this, if you were to write a script. You roost some birds. You can use an barred owl call. That old gobbler will sound off. You put that out, go out and do some scouting late in the afternoon, and you can find where the birds are roosting. Textbook we're talking about, not real world every time. So then the next morning, up before daylight, you're going to set up, not on the roost, but away from it. Put your decoy, your hen decoy, maybe a Jake decoy out. Get concealed really well and start hitting that whoop, whoop, whoop. Start hitting that old hen yelp right at daylight. That old gobbler, he's going to sound off. Your blood's going to be pumping when you hear him come off that roost. You'll hear those turkeys hit the ground. Now, we're talking textbook. Now, you have to remember, there's gobblers that are going to probably be roosting with the hens. They're all going to be a flock. And what's that gobbler probably going to do? He's going to pursue those hens that he spent the night with in that tree first. But textbook, he's going to hear you calling up on the side of that little knoll back in the brush. He's going to leave the roost area, and he's going to come to those decoys that you've got set out. Or maybe you don't even have decoys. Maybe you're just calling. He's going to come in there, and you're going to have that load of number 4s, heavy load, 2 3/4 ounces or whatever. And that old shotgun, you're going to have that shotgun pointed in the direction of the decoys, and he's going to come strutting into full bloom. And bam, you're going to have your gobbler. Textbook. That usually, I've killed way more turkeys, folks, and I've hunted them for close to 40 years. But I've killed a lot more turkeys in the, say, from 10 on, 10 to 2, 10 to 3, middle of the day, if you will. The reason for that is pretty simple. That old gobbler, or those gobblers up in that tree on the roost with the hens, he's not going to go looking. When you hear them flap out of that tree and hit the ground, he's got the lady love of his morning right there with him. So the real world, why would he leave what he sees to come to something he hears? They usually don't, to be quite honest with you. Sometimes I've called them off, when they hit the ground. I've called them, I guess, mostly when gobblers were not with the flock. When 2 or 3 gobblers were roosted off somewhere, and then they hear that hen, they think, and they come in for a shot. But anyway, that's midday after they have done their thing, after they've bred the hens and all right there in early morning, and that's what happens. Then those old gobblers are still ready. They're looking for love, and they are out on the move. So that's when I've called up most of my gobblers. Don't think 10, 11, 12 o'clock, you can't call a hot gobbler in. You can. That's when I've killed, and most turkey hunters that I know, if they're completely honest, will agree with me. That's when they've shot most of their birds. It just works that way. So, don't think you have to be out there. Some turkey hunters, and sometimes even me, I don't get out there at the break of day. It's hard not to, because you want to hear those birds on the roost, and that's just part of a spring turkey hunt. But sometimes I don't. Now, patterning that shotgun is most important. We always talk about, we got to sight that deer rifle in, or if you're shooting a rifle, you better sight it in, know where it's shooting. Same with a shotgun. I'll give you a good case in point. I'm going to tell on myself. I was up at the Choctaw Hunting Lodge probably 6-7 years ago. It's up in southeast Oklahoma. It's owned by the Choctaw Nation. You can visit their website, ChoctawHuntingLodge.com. That's the best place I know to go kill a big eastern turkey. The first time I hunted up there was for eastern turkey as a spring season. I missed 2 big eastern gobblers. I can still see them in my dreams. Missed them with a shotgun. I had a buddy come back. I came back, and he's an old waterfowl hunter. He said, "You missed 2 turkeys with a shotgun?" I did. The eastern birds are they're woods birds, and I think an eastern turkey is just more wary than a Rio. Rio is usually out in pretty open country where he can look around, see what's going on. But an eastern, he's close quarters. I mean, he got to think about bobcats and coyotes and everything else sneaking up on him. So he's going to be more wary. I was hunting in some heavy brush with a guide. That's the way they hunt up there. Not always, but that's the way. I was an invited rider up there at the time at the Choctaw Hunting Lodge. And good guide had the birds up there within 25 yards, but they were in the heavy brush. And I had a new shotgun. I did not pattern that gun at home. And I had an ultra-tight choke. My mistake, especially in the woods. Well, the gobbler was working. He was moving through the brush, and I'd see his head every now and then, and it'd be behind a tree. Then he'd be out for a second, and then he'd be behind some brush. And I picked a little hole, a little tight hole, and all I could really see is his front part of his body, his head and neck. And you want to center that shotgun pattern on the center of a turkey's neck. That's what you need to hit the bird. Well, I saw that head come around the tree, and I centered centered the bead on his neck. I thought, bam, and the turkey, of course, he was on the move, but I missed him totally. I could not understand. He was about 25, 30 yards. How did I miss that turkey? Felt kind of silly, to be honest with you. Especially with a guide there with me, and I kidded him. I said, you know what, I did kill a turkey one time in my earlier days, just joking with him. He laughed, but I said, I just missed him. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I missed another one in the same scenario. Heavy brush, the turkey was on the move. He knew something was up, but he was about to vamoose on us, and I shot and missed him. So I could not figure it out. But I got back to the lodge, and I had to leave the next morning. And put a sheet of paper up, went out about 25 yards. That ultra-light choke was shooting a 4.5 from one side of that pattern to the other, almost like a rifle at 25 yards, I believe it was. Very tight. So I quit using those ultra-tight chokes on turkeys. Honestly, a full choke is great. A modified, if you're going to be shooting turkeys within 35 yards, or 40 maybe, modified with these heavy loads that we've got today, turkey loads, modified will get it done. So that's it. And I've often said anything can and often does happen on a spring turkey hunt. Some of the most comical things that I've experienced in the outdoors has happened to me on a turkey hunt. I think I've got time to tell you one of them. I was hunting a ranch up in Palo Pinto County years ago with Bob Hood. Bob was the outdoor editor for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He's passed away 8 years ago, I guess, something like that. But we were great friends, Bob and I. We had shared some great times together. A lot of you listening have read Bob Hood's stuff in magazines and newspapers in years past, I'm sure. So Bob was out there, and we were probably a quarter of a mile apart, and I was hunting along the river there. And I called, I'd call us on the side of a little hill, and I'd hear three gobblers, sound like three gobblers. And, boy, they would sound off, and they were down along the river. And they would not come to me. And I thought, well, they're on the other side of the river. They're probably not going to close to me. So I get down, make a move, and there was in the bend of the river, and there was a lot of dead brush. You know how the water will stack up brush piles along the edge of a river? Well, it was up about 4 foot, 5 foot high, and it was all along the bend. There was three, probably, I think they were like 2-year-old birds at the time. They were running on the opposite side of that deadfall, of that wood pile, and that thing went on for 300 yards, I guess, because, flood waters in the spring had washed that dead stuff up there. Anyway, turkeys couldn't see me, but they could hear me. I'm up there, and I'm telling you, I'm on one side of the deadfall, and there's three gobblers hot. They would not come over that deadfall, but I would get loud with that hen yelp, and they would gobble their heads off. They were probably 20 feet from me, or 30. Well, then I'd move down and strike that hen call. They would move with me. I played cat and mouse with those three gobblers. I knew it was three because I could hear three different gobbles. So finally, down at the end, I saw where that brush pile, there was a hole in it where they could come through. I sneak off down there, get away from them. I'm probably, 75 yards from where they were. Set up, get my shotgun ready and hit that box call, and all three of them came around that corner of that brush, and I got one. So anything can happen on a spring turkey hunt. Folks, we're out of time. Thanks for being with us today. Do remember catfishradio.org. You can go there and learn more about what I do, and there's a link there to our TV show, A Sportsman's Life. I think you might enjoy it. I want you to tune in next week. We're going to have a lot more fun, again, talking about the outdoors. Folks, that about wraps our show up for this week. I've enjoyed being with you, and I hope you've had a good time, too. And, folks, we're also brought to you by the Choctaw Hunting Lodge up in southeast Oklahoma, located about, 45 minutes west of Hugo, Oklahoma, owned by the Choctaw Nation. It's about 45,000 acres of awesome mountain, country, hills, valleys, loaded with game. Lots of eastern turkey, and they do eastern turkey hunts if you're looking for a spot to hunt turkey in the spring. Also, I want to remind you about the Seneca 50 caliber Dragon Claw that shoots bullets and pellets. And by pellets, I'm talking about 200 and 210 grain lead, chunks of lead. It's a big bore air gun that I use. Check out the Seneca Dragon Claw there at PyramydAir.com.